This week, Siskel and Ebert review. Sean Connery educating a frustrated diplomat in A Good Man in Africa. Steve Martin and Gabriel Byrne battle for custody of a young girl in A Simple Twist of Fate. And competitors Ralph Fiennes and John Turturro keep America spellbound in Quiz Show.
You all this money to be on some rigged quiz show, instant fame, the works, would you do it?
No, of course not.
No.
Ralph Fiennes plays Charles Van Doren, a university teacher who got caught on a history-making TV scandal in Quiz Show, one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, including new films starring Steve Martin, Sean Connery, and Melanie Griffith. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Our first film is Quiz Show, and in a word, I think it's great. An absolutely mesmerizing drama based on the quiz show scandals of the 1950s, where America got its first TV pop culture reality check when we found out that our new national heroes were faking their way to fame and fortune. Director Robert Redford, working from a fine script from a former film critic, all right, Paul Attanasio, tells the story of Charles Van Doren, a product of New England's cultural and intellectual elite, who achieves a celebrity status and fame greater than that of his poet father when he becomes involved in a rigged quiz show called 21. Here he meets with the show's producers, played by David Paymer and Hank Azaria. Charles Van Doren is played superbly by the English actor Ralph Fiennes, Oscar-nominated last year as the evil Nazi commandant in Schindler's List.
You want to win, don't you?
Well, I think I'd really rather try to beat him honestly.
What's dishonest?
When Gregory Peck parachutes behind enemy lines, you think that's really Gregory Peck?
That book that Eisenhower wrote, a ghostwriter wrote it. Nobody cares.
It's not like we'd be giving you the answers. Just because we know, you still know.
Right. It's not like you're putting me on the show or Al and pretending to be some sort of intellectual. I mean, you have put in years of study and erudition.
Charles Van Doren's adversary in his first show is a less glamorous brain, a walking encyclopedia named Herbert Stemple. Very well played by John Turturro, and he's asked to take a dive because the producers would prefer to have a WASP champion than a Jew.
Now, the last category is movies. We're going to ask you what won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1955. You don't know it, you answer On the Waterfront.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Don't do that. Not Marty. I saw Marty 3 times. The Best Picture from 2 years ago, and I don't know it?
Someone of your intellect, and it's such a simple question. Don't you see the drama of that?
Much like All the President's Men, which starred Redford, Quiz Show is an investigative thriller with a young government lawyer, played by Rob Morrow, trying to blow wide open corruption in the relatively new industry of television.
Herb is so angry with himself for losing, and it was on such a simple question, too. Marty. His ego couldn't handle it. He blames Charles Van Doren for his downfall. And, of course, the real downfall of Herbert Stemple has always been Herbert Stemple.
Absolutely. Well, you met him. Does he seem stable to you?
Well, I definitely have an inkling of what you're talking about. He told me this whole story about how when a Jew is on the show, he always loses to a Gentile, and then the Gentile wins more money. Who could dream up a scheme like that?
The confrontation between the investigator and Van Doren is a very good one because both men know in this encounter exactly what the other knows.
What is this? It's still that business with Stemple. Dan says he's not the most reliable fellow.
Well, there's a problem, Charlie. I found another contestant, a man named James Snodgrass, and he says he got the answers, too.
I really like Quiz Show, and one of the reasons is that it names names. It doesn't fictionalize the story. The film is very much about the win-at-any-cost American business system, about a nation's loss of innocence, about the new industry of television, and about the sense of entitlement held by America's WASP ruling class. And on the conventional entertainment level, it has all the suspense and inherent drama of a good quiz show, even one that you know is fixed. I think Quiz Show is clearly one of this year's very best movies.
It's a wonderful movie, Gene, and I think you put your finger on it when you say that it's really about the system, because to this day, a lot of people remember Charles Van Doren's name as if he spontaneously did something wrong. And actually, his transgression was much smaller than the transgression of the system which produced that show and which rigged it. And this show, this movie by Robert Redford makes it very clear that the network was never touched. The sponsors were never touched. The producers of this show went on to make millions producing other TV shows. They all just continued to get rich, and this poor guy who's plucked out of obscurity, basically, and tempted with something that I think many of us would be tempted by, if we're going to be honest, is the one who still has to take the rap.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's a complete fall guy. I'm told that in reality, Van Doren is more complicitous, more eager than he is even shown here. But this picture plays like a, you know, when I'm linking this with All the President's Men, I'm linking it with one of the great investigative stories in American movies, and I think this picture has the same kind of energy to it. You're just sitting there as you watch this investigation going on while being entertained by all the quiz show mechanisms.
You know, there's a fascinating line in this movie where they say quiz shows are going to continue because we made a mistake. We didn't realize what people are really watching is the money.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's a very, very good piece of work.
Okay, next movie, which is named Milk Money, and tells the story of some 12-year-old boys who save up their lunch money and go into the city on their bikes because they want to see a real-life naked woman. Through a series of agonizingly contrived plot complications, they do find a cooperative hooker played by Melanie Griffith, and she ends up secretly living in one boy's treehouse in the suburbs while he tries to persuade his dad to marry her, telling him that she's a math tutor. A strong attraction grows between Griffith and Harris, who is a high school teacher running a campaign to save the local wetlands. Of course, there's nothing she cares more about than wetlands.
Oh, a glossy ibis.
I watch a lot of documentaries on TV.
And, of course, eventually Dad finds out that the woman he loves is a prostitute who is hiding out from a dangerous criminal.
I took a test in this magazine. Are you your mate's perfect woman? She scores a 98 out of a possible 100, losing 1 point because she's a total stranger, and the other because your entire relationship is based on a lie.
You know, this movie raises at least one obvious question, and that is, who in the world do they think is the target audience for this film? Smaller kids aren't going to understand it. Older audiences are going to find it offensive and absurd, and I don't exactly see the family audience flipping for a movie about fixing up your dad with a prostitute. But that's a marketing question, and I also have an artistic question. Did anyone think this material would or could or should work? It's one of the most inanely contrived stories of the year, and not even the genuinely likable performances by all of the leads, Ed Harris, Melanie Griffith, and Michael Patrick Carter as the kid, can save Milk Money. This movie goes right into the dumpster.
Yeah, it's a disaster, and at the conception level, absolutely wrong. And also, you know how American films, when they're viewed outside of our country, were viewed as really puritanical and sniggering about sex and really juvenile and retarded and adolescent.
This is an example.
This is it. You can point to this picture and say, boy, are you people preoccupied with the most stupid things. And you can imagine a bunch of grown men who put this project together sitting around and thinking, this will work. I mean, why don't they just flip through dirty pictures?
There's an old theory about Hollywood, which is that a lot of the executives out there can't think of any way to meet a woman unless she's a hooker, which is why, for example, in a lot of screenplays, that's what the woman is. Prostitution is one of the most common occupations for women in the movies because maybe those guys don't know any women other than their wives who do anything else. I don't know.
Coming up, Steve Martin, who had a huge hit with Roxanne, he adapts another classic novel for the big screen. A Simple Twist of Fate is next.
I believe this child belongs with me.
Hello, Mama. Hey, you got Tessa on your wrist.
Why?
That's why.
Steve Martin plays an embittered divorced man living alone whose life is transformed when he's given the chance to become a father to a foundling little girl in A Simple Twist of Fate, a good new melodrama that modernizes a classic English novel. The novel is George Eliot's Silas Marner, a complex story of family secrets, treachery, and revenge, pitting the working class against the aristocracy. All those great English themes. That sounds highfalutin, but with Steve Martin in the lead role, the drama, of course, is laced with some comedy.
You know, what better time of life than your age to enjoy baby food? Because somehow, as one gets older, one loses one's taste for unsalted mashed carrots. Although I understand that many of the finer restaurants in Paris are now serving unsalted mashed carrots.
Years later, after Martin has raised the girl alone, the real father rears his ugly head, and he's very rich and very powerful, and well played by the fine actor Gabriel Byrne.
Mr. Newland is my real father?
Yes, he is.
Would you like to come and live here with us, Matilda?
Soon there is a courtroom showdown, and the little girl uses any trick she can to stay with her adoptive father.
I could never be separated from him. He's the one who's taking care of me. He's the one who's inspired me. And now that I'm entering my years of womanhood, I'm gonna need his guidance more than ever.
That scene's kind of corny and doesn't hint at the best part of this film, which does manage to generate a lot of power through all of the scenes involving the adults, Steve Martin's loneliness, and the treachery of Gabriel Byrne's character. With all of its faults, I still, on balance, recommend A Simple Twist of Fate.
I can't quite recommend it, and one of the problems is that although I love Victorian melodrama, and I read Dickens and Trollope and George Eliot all the time, this movie, set in the modern time, seems so contrived that there was always something a little bit inexplicable about everything that was happening. It didn't seem to really generate any reality of its own.
But didn't you at the beginning accept, I mean, you know that it's a stylized story, but didn't you realize that you maybe didn't pick up what novel it was, but you knew that that was what he was doing?
Well, I think something about the miser counting his gold coins and then adopting the little girl maybe tipped me off. But no, it just never really, it was an ambitious attempt. I give it credit for what they're trying to do. There's a lot of good stuff in it, but no, it just didn't quite do it for me.
I think that Martin's portrait of the loner is dead on accurate. I think it's a good performance. I think the world of this girl, the other world, the rich world, I think that's well portrayed. I think it works.
Okay, when we come back, Sean Connery stars as an honest, outspoken doctor in A Good Man in Africa.
Wrong game. Why don't you just get yourself out of here?
And what about my bloody career?
Your career? You have more chance on the PGA Tour.
Sean Connery plays the bluntly ethical doctor who has the title role in A Good Man in Africa, and the confused young man he's giving advice to in that scene is Colin Friels, the first secretary of the British consulate in a fictional African nation where corruption is the watchword. One of the leading politicians in the nation is played by Lou Gossett Jr., and after offshore oil deposits are discovered, the British offer him a bribe to be their friend.
Now, Mr. Fanshawe must think of us Africans in simplistic terms.
Yes. Oh, no, I mean, simplistic in the sense that we hold you in the highest regard.
John Lithgow plays the boss, the newly arrived British consul who hates his job and cares only about getting out of there and getting a promotion.
They'll leave me out here to rot in this godforsaken country. I'll be gin-sodden, malarial. Chloe will leave me. I'll be living with some lubricious black girl down in the African township.
When an African woman is struck dead by lightning in the consulate driveway, the local religions prohibit her from being moved. Friels turns desperately to Connery for help, but doesn't get the advice he wants to hear.
Take a look around you, Leafy. Ask a few questions. Find out about the place you're living in.
A Good Man in Africa is based on the comic novel by William Boyd, but the movie never generates very much comedy or much of anything else. It wants to show corrupt diplomats dealing with corrupt politicians in a corrupt land, but basically what it shows is that the Colin Friels character is amoral, inept, and badly confused. And since the character is never very likable to begin with, it's hard to find anyone we care about, except, of course, for the doctor played by Connery, who isn't on screen very much, but has some good lines when he is.
Well, that's exactly my review. The only character that you can possibly care about is the Connery character, not just because it's Connery, but because it's an interesting potential character you might want to follow through the picture. You don't get to see him. You're constantly being frustrated. No one else is the least bit interesting.
There's one scene in the movie where the young man plays golf with the older doctor.
Yeah.
And if you kind of looked at that scene, you could see how the entire movie had been about the doctor.
Yes.
And that character, as shown there, it would have been.
And you know, with Connery's name in this picture, I think a lot of people are going to be, you know, looped into it and feeling that, you know, it's going to be about him. It isn't about him, unfortunately. Coming up next, two lonely people have a terrifying first date in What Happened Was.
I hope you like seafood.
No, it's just the word seafood. It gives me the creeps.
Something special, I think, a small jewel of writing and acting by some new faces in American movies. The film is called What Happened Was, and it's a superb first film from writer-director Tom Noonan about a first date between two smart and lonely New Yorkers. It's set in the woman's apartment, and that is the film's only location for its 92 riveting minutes. First, the woman, beautifully played by Karen Sillis, frantically tries to get her apartment ready.
You're early.
I guess.
Have you been waiting out there long?
Oh, just a few seconds. I heard music. And,
Yeah, I know. I was just listening. I didn't know I couldn't hear the bell, so.
Oh, I know what that's like.
A real tension develops between the two as the evening progresses.
I watch you at work, you know.
You do you?
You're doing something, aren't you?
What do you mean?
Well, you keep writing things down.
Writing things down?
Yeah, you did it just before. It's in your jacket pocket.
They drink and talk and dine and drink and talk and flirt with a relationship.
You know, it's amazing the things that people settle for. You know, sometimes, like if you're walking along the street and like you see a couple, and it's like hard to imagine them sleeping together.
Right, like your parents.
My parents.
And the compelling guy who plays the man there is Tom Noonan, the writer-director starring in this picture as well. And what I liked so much about this movie is that it is written New York smart. Both characters are taking big emotional risks on this first date. We really sense they're putting something on the line. And so for what really is just one long night of conversation, the stakes and the tension couldn't be any higher if these were two characters having a more conventional action scene, a shootout atop a skyscraper. I've always felt that there was a great film to be made out of a first date situation, and now I've seen it. It's called What Happened Was, and it's one of my favorite films of the year.
Gee, Gene, it just didn't work for me.
Wow.
It just didn't work. And, you know, it might have worked as a play. And I have nothing against movies that are all dialogue.
I know
and only
that.
have one set.
Oh, I'm completely surprised.
But in a sense, maybe it would have worked on the stage. But here, the camera work and everything about it is so contrived in order to obviously do what's happening. We know, I mean, really, for the first 5 minutes that the two people are in the room together, we more or less know they don't have any more secrets. Even though some things are revealed, we know that some things are going to be revealed.
Roger, wait a second. Don't you feel that you can study a person, and in one case, they're both lonely people. You don't think that loneliness, what you suggest to me is that loneliness is boring. I find
Gene,
loneliness
I'm in favor of loneliness, and I don't find it boring. That has nothing to do with this movie. You're asking me to approve of loneliness. I'm talking to you about the actual dramatic experience of watching this film, and I think that there is a lot less here than meets the eye.
No, what I'm saying is, by that, of course you would empathize with loneliness. I'm just saying that 5 minutes into this picture, you can't tell what's going to go on there. I think that these are high-risk situations.
Okay.
I didn't know where this drama was going to end up. I don't think you knew where it was going to end up. There's no way you could possibly know where it was going to end up. Come on. Look at this one again, will you?
No, I won't. No, I won't have to, Gene, because I know that it didn't give me, in the hour and a half or 2 hours that I was in there, anything that made me want to go back and see it again.
Okay, when we come back, Roger's Video Pick of the Week, a comedy about TV soap operas.
Century Plaza, offering the finest in luxury, service, and Southern California style, adjacent to Beverly Hills on LA's fashionable west side. The Century Plaza Hotel and Tower.
And now it's time for my home video pick of the week. This week's review of Quiz Show reminded me of another recent movie about network television, one that was overlooked when it came out in 1991, but remains one of the funniest single films of recent years. It's called Soapdish, a soap opera about a soap opera, and it stars Sally Field as a veteran star of daytime TV, whose throne is threatened by a newcomer sex bomb, played by Elizabeth Shue, and a veteran troublemaker, played by Kathy Moriarty, who conspires with Robert Downey Jr., the cynical producer of the program.
David, I cannot be the villain forever. I'm sweet. I'm tender. I'm a victim.
One of the funniest characters is Kevin Kline, Field's former boyfriend, since then reduced to making a living in dinner theater.
You try playing Willie Loman in front of a bunch of old farts eating meatloaf, chewing and slurping and spitting out their pits. every night listening to them, coughing and hacking and wrenching. I was in hell.
Soapdish is my home video pick of the week. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed this week. Two enthusiastic thumbs up for Quiz Show, Robert Redford's thoughtful and entertaining look at the scandals which rocked TV networks in the 1950s. The movie opens next week in New York and then widens out to other cities during the month. Two thumbs down, though, for the inexplicable Milk Money with Melanie Griffith as a hooker who gets hired by a kid as his new mom. Here at last is a movie with no conceivable target audience. A split decision for A Simple Twist of Fate, the updated Victorian melodrama starring Steve Martin. I felt the movie had charm and some heartwarming moments, but it seemed unsure of what it wanted to do. Gene felt it had emotional power, and he recommends it. Two thumbs down for A Good Man in Africa, although we both would have liked to have seen another movie in the same place at the same time, but starring Sean Connery in a larger role. Finally, a split decision on What Happened Was, the story about a first date that turns into truth therapy. Gene greatly admired the film's intelligence and originality. I felt it was well acted, but too artfully contrived to be convincing.
You're a tough man. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with a special program about the surprising success of Forrest Gump and its star, Tom Hanks. We'll take a look at the career of the Oscar-winning actor, and we'll try to examine why this film has captured the nation like no other film in recent history. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Vital Care salon quality hair care products for beautiful, healthy, shiny, salon perfect hair every time. Vital Care for the most important thing you wear. Hooked on Phonics teaches you to read using flashcards, music, and books. It's colorful, musical, and fun. Learn to read with Hooked on Phonics. Call 1-800-ABCDEFG. Dissolve It. Safe, non-toxic, 100% organic, non-abrasive, and non-corrosive. Located in the specialty cleaning section of your favorite store, Dissolve It. Well Body New Botanical Skincare. Enjoy younger, firmer, healthier skin. Well Body, nature's very best.